He's not a bat, he's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall and a guest who doesn't rhyme. It's Bat Minute!
Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Bat Minute of the Phantasm. This is the podcast where we do a full aerial body slam on each minute of Batman Mask of the Phantasm, 1 minute at a time. I am one of the hosts, Niall McGowan.
I am your other host, John Parker, here to declare that this madness shall never end, ever. We're going to be doing it until we die.
See, it's another one. It's not quite as bad as the worst line of dialogue that Batman's ever had in The Dark Knight Rises of, like, so you came back to die with your sister. And no, I came back to stop you. But just but the fact, like, maybe it's like, this madness ends now. It's just like, that could be to anything. Like, it's not even personal to this villain. But anyway, we'll get into all that. We're joined, of course, by, as we were just the other day, by Richard and Ash. Return once more.
Hello.
I've been Ricky every other time I've been on this podcast, but I've become Richard this time. Is it because I'm about to turn 40?
Could be.
Yeah, you just seem to be using Richard more in normal life, so I think we just pivoted to it.
But hopefully Ricky will be revived by talking about minute 40 of Mask of the Phantasm, which opens with a combusted domicile and ends a minute later with a bright light on a dark night. So we open here with the Phantasm looking back at the exploded Valestra. I always thought it was at the top of the building, but it turns out like Valestra's apartment was only like four stories up, apparently.
Yeah, he can't be that good a gangster then, because everyone knows you move up the building
Yeah,
as you get.
I thought he'd be like way at the top, but the bizarre thing is, a Phantasm jumped out the window and is now like entirely across like the street. Like this is like it's quite a distance away from the building. So I don't know if there's a whole thing of like Andrea like landing somewhere and then having to like run down the street and then climb up this giant ladder, or if we're just supposed to imply that like she glided across.
This is one of those things. The thing it tantalized with this being able to cover great distances in a short amount of time in a way that I thought would be like paid off at the end, where they would explain how such a superhuman feat was able to be achieved with like gadgets or something like that, but they just don't, do they?
Speaking of superhuman feat, the smoke seems to be coming out of the Phantasm's boots, so that's almost answering the question of what the hell's going on with the smoke.
Unless the problem with that is that also the smoke is able to make them disappear entirely. So as we take one step closer to understanding the smoke, we actually take a step further away because it becomes more fantastical still. I can only presume at the end maybe they'll explain why, because they tantalize with the smoke can make her disappear, but then they never actually explain how she's able to do it with any kind of gadget or anything.
Yeah, I think you see like at one point when she like sprays the Joker during their fight at the end. She sprays it like it comes out of her glove in a kind of corkscrew spiral kind of thing. So I just assumed there's like this canister, must be like a wire up her arm to like. Well, it's something we can get into as we get into it, because we obviously have here the design of the Phantasm. We see the Phantasm in all their glory, but I do have here. I'll pop it into the group chat on the Zoom, so you folks can all get a look at it. The original designs for the Phantasm before they settled on this one. Bruce Timm talks about on. Like one of the making of documentaries. And he's like, I was just told to make it look like the Grim Reaper.
All I can see is John in John's Pete Bentham and the Dinner Ladies get up. And if that's the original design for the Phantasm, they've missed a trick there.
I based my whole look in the band on this, you see. Yeah.
John Pirro will just come out and say, like, stay away. This is not your fight. To the audience.
We start every song with a clip from Mask of the Phantasm.
I can't zoom in on these concept drawings. Sorry, Richard.
Just as Pete goes, this madness ends now.
and then we just start like a thrash metal song. That's what we've been doing lately.
No, I can see those thumbnails. They're very so they tell the story with shadows and silhouettes a lot in this, which it's a very atmospheric way of doing it.
I say like also we'll post them up on all the social medias and stuff, but so people can kind of see like what we're getting at here is that there's one that looks a lot like, what do you call it in Jeepers Creepers? It's just called the Creeper, isn't it? Like the thing that's driving the truck.
Which one do you mean? The first one?
Yeah. Oh, I think it's the second one.
I like the first one. The first one's the only one I'm really into because it looks a bit like an outfit that Dave Vanian of the Damned wore for a bit.
V for Vendetta.
Oh yeah, actually very V for Vendetta. It also looks a bit like, a little bit like when they redesigned the Scarecrow, like in the later episodes of the Batman animated series, like when they did the WB shift over and then just made the Scarecrow like properly terrifying looking. Like it was like it looked at, and I think then I've seen since that apparently they've explained, or there was going to be an attempt to explain why the Scarecrow initially just looked like some asshole with a burlap sack on his head and a red jumper, and then the later episodes is Jeffrey Combs takes over doing the voice, and it looks like an actual like a corpse and a long raincoat.
Jeffrey Combs from Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, Jeffrey Combs of Herbert West Reanimator.
How do I know that?
Is Jeffrey Combs, fantastic actor. Absolutely adore him, and a perfect voice for the Scarecrow as well. Actually, went on to voice the Question in the Justice League as well, and also did a phenomenal job there. But apparently, it was one of those things that there's like the Scarecrow just showed up again, and he just looks way more monstrous, and you can't even tell if he's in an outfit anymore. It looks like this might just be his face and stuff. It's really creepy. And apparently, they said the original plan was going to be that they would eventually explain that, where that he had like some sort of chemical accident landed on his face, which like deformed him, and then later on, because he's got a noose around his neck the whole time. They said that there was going to be a plot line wherein he would be sentenced to death, and he would be sentenced to hanging.
Wow.
And then when they hung him, the rope snapped. But since then, because he's completely crazy, he believes himself to be a ghost. And so it's like the Scarecrow is just like, but I'm wondering a lot of this came from like this draw. Like, I think they might have been happy with this drawing of the original Phantasm, where it's like big cape and the wide brimmed hat and all that kind of stuff. Oh, and then they were like, we won't use that here, but we can retool that down the line or something. But,
I absolutely love that Scarecrow backstory. That's my headcanon now.
Yeah, apparently like they it just didn't happen. But it's rumblings around online were like, yeah, that was going to be the pitch. There's one as well that looks like it's much more of a kind of some of the masks are much more luchador kind of looking.
Yeah.
And like it's there's not much of a cape, it's just it kind of looks just like a ninja with a luchador mask and a bit of a cape behind it.
Obviously long post Bane, isn't it?
Yeah. Which is weird because they said Bruce Timm and stuff. The Bruce Timm, as he did a lot of work on the show, and he drew these drawings. And like we talked about last season, he hated Bane. Like he really hated the concept of Bane. He hated the fact that he wore like a stupid luchador mask and stuff. And he was like, yeah, I don't want to do him. And they kind of forced their hands into like, I guess maybe because this will be happening all during Nightfall as well. This film comes out at that time where Bane's like a big deal. So I think, I'm kind of surprised that like there's a kind of Bane influence at all in there. But it's like Bane
it also reminds me of Spawn.
That's a bit of Spawn, actually. Yeah, too. Totally. The Spawn is like Bane or Spawn with a Bela Lugosi hairline. It's got full on. It also looks a bit like, and I can't imagine they had any intent of, but the kind of, it reminds me, are any of you folks familiar with the Batman villain, Lord Deathman?
No, he sounds great.
Lord Deathman is like, it's just one of those great oddities of comic lore where like he was invented in the 60s as a guy, basically as like a skull fit. He looks like, Johnny Lawrence's Halloween outfit in Karate Kid, the skeleton outfit.
Okay, yeah.
That's it. That's what Lord. But at that point, he was just called Deathman, and he like tried to rob someplace. Batman stopped him, and then they sentenced him to death. But he died in the courtroom, and then they're like, "Oh, so we buried him." But then he popped up again somewhere, and they're like, "What the hell? We Lord Deathman, as he was called then, is dead." And then when the Batman and Robin are fighting him again, he dies again. And after a while, they figure out that like, no, he's not dying. He's like a master yogi. And so what he's doing is just like getting away with crimes by pretending to be dead and like slowing down his heart rate.
Genius.
To nothing. But it was one of the big things then, like in the 60s, like side character kind of came and went in one issue. Then for the first time in comics history, Japan decided to like, we want to like buy a comic line from the US and we love this Batman character. We want to do a manga of Batman. And they did, and they loved Deathman. And so they brought back Deathman and recalled him Lord Deathman, which is just a fantastic Japanese spin on the whole thing. Yeah. And they changed it to like, oh, he can never die. That's his whole thing. It's like he literally comes back from the dead. And they adapted it into like an episode of The Brave and the Bold where they did it in an anime style and stuff, like a really old school kind of Street Racer-esque Japanese animation. And yeah, but as things with Lord Deathman, he was brought in. Grant Morrison brought him in for Batman Incorporated, and like, you know, Grant Morrison just loves to do crazy stuff with really old, bizarre, terrible ideas from Batman lore. So yeah, he brought back Lord Deathman, and his whole thing was that, well, he can't die. You literally cannot kill him. So Batman just gets to go hardcore on him. And I think it ended with like, he threw him off a building in front of a truck that was driven by Catwoman, and then they both like crumpled him up, put him into a safe, and then shot that safe into space because that's the only way you could get rid of him.
Amazing.
Yeah. He's kind of became a bit of an internet meme, but he even popped up in like the Harley Quinn comic book run. And I remember there was a bit where she rips out his heart and like puts it in a blender and like liquefies his heart, and then Lord Deathman just comes in and grabs the glass and like drinks his own heart. It gets really, really bad. But
that's metal.
But some of those drawings are like, it's a bit Lord Deathman-ish. I'm just a bit like, they can't be going for that, but maybe somewhere in there.
Are you guys familiar with the Golden Bat?
I don't think so. No,
doesn't sound familiar.
A Japanese superhero with a very similar design to this Deathman. He was thought of as a kind of a precursor to Batman and Superman. It was like one of the first superheroes. Because then like Japan had something that was very similar to comics that preceded comics in Japan. It was what was, I don't know what it's called, but it's like you go to as if it was a puppet show or something, and they show you like one panel at a time and do the voices.
Oh wow,
awesome!
It kind of goes all the way back to that tradition, but then carried on into like manga, and there's some live action films and stuff like that. He's meant to be one of the first superheroes, and he's just a cackling caped skull.
Right, if we can find a movie, we're going to do it as a bonus.
Look him up. He's also known as Phantoman or Ogon Bato.
Oh wow! I mean, this maybe that's why they got it so on board with Lord Deathman. Yeah. That was the only reason they wanted to do Batman. They're like, we saw that Deathman guy.
Version of the same thing.
Yeah, we harken back to our childhoods. We want to see that character again. But then of course the two bottom designs are much more overtly Grim Reaper-ish.
They're too much for me. They're too like the bottom right one, for instance, looks like bloody like Frankenstein's monster in a robe. Yeah,
big like proper hunchback. Like the only way I could excuse it in my mind, and to bring us back to what we were originally talking about, is that would work as if that was where all the smoke was kept, and a giant backpack, and then it was disguised as a hump. But I don't mind the bottom right one. The bottom left one, it just looks like a kind of low key Grim Reaper. Yeah, and I think they're creepy, but they don't seem very like. Well, the bottom right one's kind of imposing, but I think they made the right choice with their kind of like their Reaper rip-off. I think they kind of went back to the source material, like, oh, make it a bit like the Reaper.
It's a bit like just kind of like a dirty version of Dr. Doom. Like Dr. Doom's been in a accident of some kind.
It'll be what do you call him? Toby, what's his face? Who would play Dr. Doom in that Fan Four stick? Toby. And he just did the bizarre version of Dr. Doom.
Over there.
Yeah, that was just one of those things. Of just like, well, you guys really swung for something. You missed it so drastically.
At least they tried, you know.
Yeah. And then some Marvel now is like, we're going back to the well
for the 800th time. It's bound to work now.
Yeah.
So the Gotham looks. This is signature Gotham for me. This is what Gotham looks like in my head when I'm reading any Batman comic. I presume this is what's going on outside. This style of skyscrapers upon skyscrapers upon skyscrapers, nighttime, Art Deco design buildings. Everything's like 1940s, but also modern day as well. So when they were making the first Batman stories, it was like contemporary design. And then they just stayed with that style of design, occasionally like going back and re-emphasizing it over the years, so that by the time you get to the 90s, it's like a throwback design. But when they were first doing it, it was contemporary. The only example I can think of that matches that is the thankfully closed club venue, the Crazy House.
Oh no, I miss it.
When you went to Crazy House in the late 90s or early 2000s, they were playing music from the late 90s and early 2000s because it was the late 90s and early 2000s. But then as the years went by, they never changed the playlist. So
it's exactly the same order as well.
15 years later, it was like a themed bar, like you were going to a late 90s themed bar, but it wasn't. They didn't choose. It happened literally day by day by day by them just not actually changing what it was. So,
it's changed from being like Saturday nights to it's emo night now.
Oh, that's
like,
yeah.
But that was every night. It wasn't. It's like no, now it's a theme because it's 15 years later. There's I wonder if there was any conversations and they were just like too proud to do it or whatever. But like they say the Phantasm looks up at the moon, and the Batwing's coming towards it.
Oh, I love that. I think that's so cool.
But it feels like if it was a bit bigger, they could be emulating the
89.
infamous 89, the Batwing going up in front of the moon and showing you the bat symbol and then going back down, which is reference. It's in the trailer for The Flash. They have a kind of little callback to it. I saw there.
I think this is enough of a callback without copying it, though. I think it's alluding to it, isn't it?
I don't know if there was a bit where maybe the studio wanted to be a bit more overtly like the '89 movie, and they're like, no, we don't really, because they had a kind of pride about like we're doing our own thing. So I can imagine them being like, we can kind of do the bat symbol, but like make it really small so it doesn't look like we're just ripping off the '89 movie or something. Like,
did the Batwing look like that prior to the '89 movie?
I don't think it existed, did it? He had the Bat-copter prior to '89.
Sure, we have a plane, maybe?
I think there's definitely a bat plane. If you wanted to find out, you can go back to Minute 89, where I'm sure we probably went into the history of the Batwing.
It was a period of civil war. It's almost as if this 30-year-old, comparatively low-budget animated flop of a film had more dignity and self-respect to do the member berries, hey, this is the thing that you saw in the other thing scene of the Batwing going over the moon, and the super high budget Hollywood blockbuster that's coming out with The Flash doesn't have an ounce of the dignity that these animators had 30 years ago.
I have an update for you about the Batwing. So he's had various versions of a flying vehicle. In 1939, Detective Comics number 31, he had the Bat-Giro, which was based on a helicopter flight by
That's
Igor Sikorsky.
When times were hard. He had to line up for his Bat-Giro.
You had to sign on at the Bat-Giro.
The Bat-Giro was replaced by the Bat-Plane in Batman issue number 1. And it had a machine gun on it.
Yep.
And that's a plane. So issue 1, baby, he's got the plane, which is basically the Batwing. It's more of like a jet, but
yeah. It's I think it's arguing like apples and oranges. Well, not apples and oranges because they are drastically different. But it's like it's a proper splitting hairs thing of like bat plane or bat wing. What does it really count? It's like if it's a plane, then it's the Batwing. That's essentially it.
Yeah, and the Dark Knight Rises. It says here, also adapted the Bat plane to film. However, this time the vehicle is referred to as the Bat.
Yeah,
that's crap. I forgot about that.
I remember that. I remember that even coming out and just been like, the Bat. Like, the Bat? Come on, give me a break, will you?
Exactly.
He's the Bat.
Like, because that's one of the things that's in this film that I enjoy. It's just a little tickle that I always like of, it's the Bat.
It's the bat flying around in a slightly bigger bat.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like that's one of the lines that you come to Batman to hear is people referring to Batman as the Bat.
Oh, it's my favorite thing. I love him just being the Bat.
And the bomb that he was carrying was also called the Bat, and the escape pod was called the Bat, and the city he went to live in at the end was called the Bat.
He's just got bats on the brain.
They should go in and re-edit it, the end of Dark Knight Rises, so when it shows up, you get Bane going, "It's the frigging Bat!" This is
I love it. It adds to his like mystique and his like scariness, I think. A bit like this scene, actually. Like I love this with the Phantasm fleeing, in case Batman has spotted them, and he has, because it makes Batman scary. This is terrifying. It's like this thing coming. It's like the hunter killers from the Terminator.
It's handy that he happened to be in the Batwing tonight. Smell cruising around like, oh, how convenient. Like some nights he goes out in the Batmobile and he'll get low level villains. Sometimes he's up in the sometimes he's in the Bat boat and he's just looking over at Gotham going like, yeah, I can't really do much out here. This is a terrible idea.
I can see someone on a roof over there. Wow.
Hey, you never know when sea-based crime is going to occur.
It's mad that the Phantasm can outrun the jet plane as well. Like, but that's something they clearly animated, so the Phantasm has super fast speed. And I kind of thought, is that something that they're going to pay off at the end? And explain with some gadget how they're able to do it, but they just don't do it.
It's the
Jedi power.
Lady self-defense class, isn't it? That's where it's all.
Yeah, Miss Hovey's self-defense for girls. Yeah, that's it.
That's the whole origin.
I was actually thinking though, because it is strange that like that's the only explanation we ever get for Andrea is like been able to fight. It's like fair enough, she took self-defense classes, but like I'm wondering, did she have her own like when she went away for a couple of years and her dad died? Did she have her own like evil training in the mountains?
Yeah,
like was she with Ra's al Ghul? Like obviously that's not this continuity, that's the Nolan movies, but like in many ways though, if they did like if they just wrote it into comics continuity that like all that stuff in Batman Begins happened with Ra's al Ghul, except it was Andrea Beaumont. I would actually be like, and then she was quite willing to kill people and join the League of Assassins, and that's why she's able to do all this stuff. I'd be like, great, yeah, that actually makes total sense to me.
Yeah, I'd go for that.
Yeah.
Character of Andrea in any comics prior to this, or is that a character that's been?
No, she's made up. They're really good with that in the animated series. The amount of like mostly female characters too. Like Harley Quinn originates from the show. Renee Montoya, Ronnie Rocket, all these people, or Roxy Rocket, sorry.
Yeah, Ronnie Rocket's that David Lynch script, isn't it?
Yeah, yes.
But the reason I was asking if Andrea Beaumont was like an old character is it's probably a really ridiculous thing to wonder about. But I really like this sort of like terrible Batman knockoff called Rat Think Abubu.
Oh, we had friends of frequent guests, Audra Wolfman and Brett Stillo. They mentioned Rat Think a Go-Go. Not in previous seasons. Like they they just recommended it as a thing. But
the love interest in that Rat Think's love interest was CB Beaumont, and I thought maybe if they made that from the comic. But
that actually I always assumed that Beaumont, because Andrea is in reference to Andrea Romano, the voice director of the animated series, and apparently it was always a thing where Kevin Conroy, when they were making the show, because he's sort of the known gay man at the time, but he used to just flirt up a storm with Andrea Romano, and like when they're sitting getting ready to go, he would just be like Andrea, and they constantly saying her name in a very sexy way, and they just made it a running joke, and then they brought that into the movie by naming the love interest Andrea, but we never questioned why Beaumont. So you might have actually landed on what it is.
Because I was kind of thinking of it the other way, like the Rat Think Abubu people had taken it from Batman, but it seems less likely that the animated series would take something from such a terrible film. But maybe they did.
I would imagine it, because again, if you look at like The Brave and the Bold, like Paul Dini, who wrote big chunks of this, he wrote for that, and that's a celebration of like all things Batman. Like they go into like all the silliest comic books and all the random knockoffs and stuff, and they seem to love all of it. So Paul Dini naming a character after someone from Rat Think Abubu seems entirely possible to me. I'd be willing to bet that's actually what it is.
I hope that's true. I hope I have cracked it. That'd be
amazing. That'd be great.
Even if you haven't, I love it anyway.
I'll just say it now. Yep, just headcanon. That's what it is. Yeah. And they find out, like, we're looking at the end credits later, and there's like someone in there called Beaumont. Like, nope, didn't see it. Did not see it.
Take it all back.
Yeah.
Although, Ricky, you mentioned before the speed of this plane, and it made me think, despite it going quite slow for a jet, Batman does something I find insane here. So he's pursuing the Phantasm still, across the rooftops, and then we get him leaping out of the thing. He says is this where he says this madness ends now? Well, he says it just after he lands, doesn't he? But
I think he says the Phantasm says, "Stay away. This is not your fight." And then when this madness ends now, which that's what I was saying at the start. It's not a great comeback. It's just a real
but I don't know. I think that Batman just says to himself, "So sorry, I just can't let this madness ends now." I feel like Batman just probably has a bit of a self-awareness tick, where 30 times a day he really just looks at whatever he's doing, even if he's just brushing his teeth or something, and just says, "This madness ends now. This has to stop somewhere. Come on,
he's talking about
has gotten silly now, hasn't it?"
Yeah, it's like in I don't know if any of you watch HBO's Barry with Bill Hader.
No.
Started it, yeah. It's very funny.
Oh, it's great show. It gets less and less comedic as it goes on. The last 2 seasons have been geez, this is it's very horror inflected, and it's very compelling drama. But this used to be a comedy show. What the hell happened to it? But it's a thing where he keeps vowing he's going to stop killing people. And then circumstances they always end up having to kill one more person, kind of thing. And then at the end of most episodes, it's him going, "Starting now," and then that's him vowing to never kill again. And then by the end of that, by the end of next week, he's killed somebody else. To the point where I think there's literally an episode called "Starting Now," and it's one of the season finales because someone's gonna die then. So, but yeah.
Sorry, John. I think I interrupted there. You were saying something about Batman jumping off the plane.
It's just the fact he jumps out of a moving rocket plane. I don't care if it's going slow. It's still you're going to break your legs.
Oh, now if you have a Phantasm to land on, I guess, who also surprisingly just gets up as if she hasn't had a, freaking 200-pound man, just a solid muscle just land on her back. But
I think you could maybe survive that. But the guy, he's in a plane. What the hell?
Which looks like it's heading straight for that LOR water tower, but we don't see the inevitable collision.
They couldn't afford that because I keep thinking about it. Yeah, you're saying about the letters. It's in my head now, I just have Andy Serkis's Alfred doing that. "This key is only a partial cipher," and sitting having his coffee doing this.
Such a good voice. That's very good.
But of course, Batman does land on presumably the very heavily padded Phantasm, because you think this would be a much more both either he would die or she would die or both of them would die from this tussle. But
I want to see bones jutting out of legs.
Yeah,
You know what? Later in this film, doesn't Batman fall from a jetpack that is presumably much weaker in power than an entire jet plane? And when he falls off the jetpack, he said "Ugh," for the rest of the film and bleeding from the face.
I think it's because he goes through a giant globe when he's on his. It was the globe that did all the damage on the way down.
It's his weakness.
Yeah,
it's his Achilles spear.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Well, the Phantasm as well, when they start a fight between the two of them, but the Phantasm pulls a Batman basically and just vanishes into thin air. Are we to believe this is some sort of magic smoke bomb?
See, I don't think Batman does do that. Batman, you cut away and cut back and Batman's gone. Batman doesn't do, you're looking at Batman and then Batman just vanishes before your eyes.
Yeah.
But
he vanishes in a split second, but when you've turned around for that split second.
I did think when that happened that they would have something where it would pay off in the end and then explain how she was able to disappear.
I think she's just doing that very fast run, but backwards, just off camera.
I think that's what we're meant to believe, right? The smoke obscures it while she just runs away.
Yeah, totally. I should point out as well that there is a Batman usually does do this, the old you turn around and he's gone trick, but we did see in '89, of course, when he's on that catwalk in Access Chemicals. He does do a smoke bomb, because Gordon's, they're all watching him on the catwalk, and they're like, "What the hell?" And then they're what is that, Chief? I don't know. but keep a lid on it, And they you've disappeared, but you can see his feet going up into the air.
That's it, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it's a great movie. But there could be some genuine supernatural things going on with the Phantasm in that. If you look at second 42, before they do the smoke bomb trick, there's a kick they deliver to Batman, and it's just the way it's drawn is so kind of like that ain't right. Like they appear to be kicking with it looks like the leg and the arm. It looks the way the angle that their head's facing, they'd have to elongate their neck like a friggin' deadite or something, like growing out of its body. It's a very like bizarre contorted kick, and I'm like that doesn't sit well with me. But I'm sure they're just like it's there for a second, just let it go. Animators are like, well, we're not martial artists ourselves. It's a kick. It looks fine. Just deal with it. But
I think they take a few liberties with all of the black elements of the costume, because it's clearly got a bloke's physique for most of the film, and then as soon as she's unmasked as being a woman, she suddenly has like a sultry lady's physique, even though it's the same outfit 2 seconds later.
Maybe some padding has been removed. Or something.
When they remove the entire outfit in one fell swoop by just like grabbing the tip of the hood,
or like all the balloons of gas that she has taped around her body have all been emptied.
That's what the bulk was all along.
That was actually one thing. The problem with the gas for her as well. She always has problems with gas. Is that like when she's doing that runner from Batman? She might have been able to get away, but she was leaking gas the whole time. So the Batwings is like, well, there's a big trail of gas going where the Phantasm's going. I can just follow that. Like that's handy. Unless she was trying to lead him to a specific spot deliberately, but I don't think that's the case. Like I think she's just genuinely trying to get away at this point. And she goes said, should also mention too that when they have their little dialogue, exchange of stay away. This is not your fight. In the Japanese to English dub, that is, the fight has not been considered the share. And this madness ends now is madness which finish until a date of now. So there you go.
Very, very deep. We've got a lot to think about.
But so Phantasm does the old vanishing act, and then the coppers show up. That's,
just as the only person there now is Batman, so it looks like he's the culprit of all this. It fits the current rumours and stories that are doing the rounds about him, doesn't it?
Yeah,
you're so much better at watching films than I am. Yeah, they turn up and it's just Batman there, yes. So this is
pros.
Another element that is one of my favourite strings to the bow of Batman. My favourite Batman stories are police don't like him, and he's always on the wrong side of the police as well. There are some stories where he's like super integrated in with Commissioner Gordon and he's totally accepted, and like those ones I am less keen on. I always like it when it's an extra antagonist is the police who are always trying to thwart him.
Well, what about the Batman where him and Gordon are best mates but all the police hate him?
Yes.
That's a good dynamic.
I would say that, I agree with John. I think that's my my favorite dynamic. I also is it year one where there is like the SWAT team, and the SWAT team is run by a maniac.
Brandon, I think.
Is that it? Yeah. There's a similar thing that they do. Is it the game Arkham Origins, where there is a set piece fight scene where it's like the sniper unit who have been brought in to take out Batman, and you are stealthing through GCPD, and you drop down in the middle, and it's just like a room in a police precinct that happens to have 20 of these SWAT police GCPD in, because they're being briefed on how to take down Batman. And it's one of the signature fight scenes is you just get dropped in the middle of the room and suddenly there's 20 policemen who are all trying to kick your head in.
Yeah. That's why I absolutely love Arkham Origins, and I'm hoping for its renaissance, because people still poo on it. It's like, that's a great game. It's for things like that.
My only other note for this is that for some reason they changed this whole sequence from the script, and I think the script is worse. But basically, Batman is not chasing the Phantasm in the Batwing. Batman is pursuing just with a grappling hook.
Yeah.
Which I think is more practical, yes, but far less scary.
I can imagine that's more like, that could be potentially like a studio note as well, of like, because you do notice he shows up in he doesn't have any of like the, it's water ski Batman, or like there's laser blade action, Batman. There's none of that kind of stuff. He doesn't change into like Joel Schumacher will do in a couple of years' time, but the idea of like you have to give him a new suit in every movie so you can sell 2 toys. They're not there yet. But I would not be surprised if they're like, you have to have one scene with a Batmobile so we can sell a Batmobile. You have to have one scene with a Batbike later at the end so we can sell a Batbike.
Yeah.
You have to have one scene with the Batwing because we can sell the Batwing, and put Mask of the Phantasm on it, and there you go. There's your toy line right there.
Quite possibly. You know what? I'm going to slightly retract what I said. It would be worse on paper, like when you're reading this, but you could actually frame it and make it really terrifying if you can't, and the Phantasm can't, see Batman. There's just shadows flitting across the sky, and they're trying to evade it, and it's still there.
Yeah,
back and forth, just this black bat shape.
You could do if you had the sound effects again, like the Batman.
Yeah.
When the Batmobile shows up, and it's just this whole 30 seconds of just the engine revving up, just getting you ready to see this Batmobile and stuff.
You must have covered this earlier, but something breaks at some point in this film, and it's the Millennium Falcon hyperdrive failing.
That's right. Yeah, it's the Joker shooting the automatons as they go in.
Yeah,
Sal Valestra comes. Yeah. We oh, don't worry, we covered it.
That was that whole bit again. I think I love the role that the animated series played in codifying these bits of Batman lore, really setting the scene with Gotham as having whole big districts of the city that were obviously once at one point in Gotham's history very lavish, but have now fallen on hard times and are just completely whole derelict areas of the city. Again, really helps paint the picture, the setting. You want to see more of what's going on here. Like, I genuinely want to watch more Batman the Animated Series after watching this film because it sets it up so well. But it's kind of like what is it? Like Epcot, World's Fair. And then that again comes back in, is it Arkham City? Where there's the whole Undercity, which has automatons in it.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Has like Wonder Tower and all that is all part of like, it was Gotham's glory days, but it was all about 30 years ago, and now it's all been left to rot.
Well, yeah, I've got we covered some of like the Epcot stuff, but yeah, I hadn't thought of Wonder Tower and all that business. Probably is harkening directly back to Mask of the Phantasm. The only other note I have specifically about this minute is just that when Batman lands on the Phantasm, I just kind of wish that Andre had done the "How could you? I'm a woman" line from Returns.
Oh Batman, no! Wait, I shouldn't have said that.
I'm sorry, and also too from looking at the Japanese dub, the voice of the Phantasm really cool. They did a really great job of like made him sound really scary. Oh no, I was just gonna say also in the making of documentary, they show you this clip, and the voice has been changed. Like a Stacy Keach still doing the voice, like who did the voice of Carl Beaumont, who also does the Phantasm. But they put much more of an effect on the voice to make it sound scarier. And I was kind of like, oh, I wish they kept that. For whatever reason, they kind of tone it down a little in the finished product. But
yeah, the finished voice is more kind of chill, isn't it? It's like, your angel of death awaits.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like there's something up with it, but it sounds like it could be a normal voice. But the other one sounds like, no, it sounds eerie and sort of not quite human and stuff. And it's like, maybe they're like, it's too scary or whatever. But
is this the same thing as... Is it the same dynamic as Solo, a Star Wars story, where they make it a big thing where Enfys Nest has a big robot voice and is a badass, and then at the end they take the mask off and it's but it's a beautiful woman. they felt a bit cringy when they did it in Solo. I don't know if it's a bit cringy in this. Does it work?
I think
better
in this it works because at least Andrea has like a backstory, and you're like, oh, that's the reveal. Like,
That's it. That's why this is better, because it's a woman. This is that character that you've come to know, as opposed to in Solo where it's like, look, it's woman.
Yeah, I think in Solo I was like, are we supposed to know who that is? Like the way they stayed on, I was like, is it Thondawe Newton's daughter or something? Like, because it looks a bit like her. Like, why are they staying on this so long? It's like, it's just some lady. But
I think that the transitioning with the next batch, that's why they have delayed the next batch of Star Wars films, because they're going to a new format where Wikipedia is just trailing across the bottom of the screen, explaining all the expanded materials you have to read to know why anything matters.
I feel like we need to give appreciation to the people who animated the bit at, I think it's second 22 or 23, just before he puts preset 5 into the thing, where it's just the Batwing just static in the middle of the screen, but then there's amazing perspective buildings. Flying past. I can watch that on a loop.
They do that a few times in this, where there's cool static stuff which should be sort of crap, but they do it in a way that makes it really artistic.
It is beautiful. It's beautiful. You could take stills from this. People must have stills from this. I
think it's the thing. Like we've sort of discovered from in the airing, is that usually you have to go through the minute and find what's the best shot to be the shot from the minute. When we put it up on Facebook and stuff, and literally every frame of this is a painting. So it's they're all good. You could literally take any still from any minute, and it would work as that's the image from the minute. It's all perfectly poised. There's no kind of people doing half faces or any of that kind of thing. It's all designed to be pristine and stuff.
Or like when you get from The Simpsons around this era, and nobody knows what I'm on about when I say this. One still, usually at the start of a scene, would be slightly digitized. The lines would have an anti-alias style effect. Like that is the still that they digitized to go on some archive or something like that. Niall, come on. Do you not know this either?
No, I've never. And now I have to go back and look to see if I can spot it. But no, that's never struck me as a thing.
Yeah, and every single other element of The Simpsons has been super analyzed to death. But that weird one throwaway frame where they went, it's okay, this frame is slightly digitized, no one will notice.
Yeah.
Maybe made it up.
Definitely worth investigation. But is it a Disney Plus thing though? Because it could be that since moving over there, they've fiddled with things.
Yeah, the DVD chapters starting.
Yeah, but no, it wasn't. I remember seeing it on Sky One back in the day.
Oh,
Cable Northwest.
Okay. But no, I'll have to look into it. But
what do you think the other 4 Batwing presets are?
There's at least 4 other ones.
Yeah.
One is tea Earl Grey hot.
Yeah, indeed. One is just hover over Crime Alley, so we can have a little cry grieve fly.
Absolutely, because then even if he's not in the Batwing, it's probably got cameras on it, so he can at least have a little look, have a nosy.
He's got the cargo hold full of 2 roses together that he can just dump out at any.
Yeah,
he just presses the button and just.
There's a preset to just send it off to fetch yet another ward for its collection.
Find track orphan.
Yeah, that's it. Orphan tracker on it. Yeah,
he just presses it, it goes off, gets him a kid, brings it back.
Yeah, and then drops the kid off with Batman and then flies away. And then the kid says to Batman, "But I'm not an orphan." And then you just hear the Batwing firing weapons in the distance. All right, okay, go on.
You are now.
There's also a really nice thing where the Bat logo on his chest does a little flap so that it can be seen and his arm doesn't block it. It's like it comes alive for a moment.
Oh,
is it like that famous drawing of Captain America by that artist that everybody hates?
Look.
Oh yeah,
where Captain America's chest comes out and twists 45 degrees so that it's pointing towards the lens. Ash is totally right though. As Batman pushes forward on the throttle of the Batwing.
Second 14.
As his forearm passes in front of the... I love that we're saying the seconds. Like anyone's listening to this go, oh, I must skip back to 14.
They probably do.
If you do, come on, guys. Get in touch with us. We can help.
That is really egregious, though. Yeah, it probably it shrinks, so you never lose any sight of the bat symbol. It's always there.
Yeah, that is a Batman style thing that Batman would do, but I've never seen done that I would welcome, is that his logo is actually a screen and he can change the brightness of it, make it more of a target, change the Batman logo if he needs to, or make it go completely matte pitch black for when he needs to go stealth. Like
it's
when
nanobots.
I only recently clicked that in the Rogue One Darth Vader hallway scene, when he turns on his lightsaber in the dark and he's just stood there lit by the red lightsaber, he's turned off all the lights on his chest plate. And I'm like, oh, yeah. I mean, I suppose he would be able to turn the lights off when he wanted on his chest plate.
He's holding his breath.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, indeed. So that's a thing from the last minute, I suppose, isn't it? That the Wheezy Gangster has a kind of Darth Vader, Saw Gerrera, I'm a baddie, so I can't breathe properly trope to him, hasn't he?
It's like another little, the little gas mask thing, the little oxygen mask. It's another little nod to Mark Hamill there, just for a little.
Oh right, yes, yeah.
For the sake of your editing, Niall, we should probably do the cartoon thing because it's an hour and 7 minutes.
Yeah. I think before we wrap up, quickly, guys, is that we've asked because Batman the Animated Series was such a seminal show for a certain generation of people and beyond growing up. We're asking the guests what their favorite cartoons were from back in the day.
I was a big Ren and Stimpy person.
Hey, yes. Classic.
To be fair, most cartoons, I didn't really like anything with people in it. I used to turn the channel over if anything was live action.
No, that's the same thing with I never watched Blue Peter or Grange Hill or any of that stuff. I was just like, no, it's people in it. I want to see cartoons. So
I was always the complete opposite. So it's fascinating to me in a genuine way, like seeing what people.
This is why we desperately need to do a poster for the show of me and you back to back, John, both doing the thumbs back on this guy.
It's gonna happen.
One likes cartoons, one likes Biker Grove. Will they ever get along?
And I can be a real photograph and you can be a sketch of yourself.
Ah, there you go. Perfect. That's beautiful. It's beautiful.
They do that with the Chippendale film, which turned out to be really funny. I really enjoyed it, where one of them's CG and one of them's drawn animation. And the whole premise of the film is that cartoons aren't like they used to be. Get over it, old people. It's good.
So he's had surgery to turn him 2D or so, or to turn him 3D. I think. It's just something. Yeah, the friggin' the old design of Sonic shows up from the terrible Sonic trailer.
The trailer, yes.
Yes.
Surprisingly enjoyable film. Oh, this just be another throwaway thing to put in front of the kids. I was like, oh no, I'm laughing more at this than the kids are.
Have you got a cartoon, Richard?
The
Chippendale Rescue Rangers.
There was a weird point during lockdown where, because I am the nerd in the family, I'm the only lad in the family. Women are obviously, and girls are obviously nerds as well. But in the context of my family, I'm the nerd. And there was a weird point in lockdown where the kids were watching an awful lot. We were also doing homeschooling as well. No, we weren't. The kids were watching an awful lot of Teen Titans Go. Which is funny, and I really like Teen Titans Go. I really love the disrespect it has for people who are precious about cartoons and things that are silly and for kids, and it just will totally tear the mythology of it to pieces to make a silly fart joke. But my daughters were watching a lot of Teen Titans Go, and then my partner, she got really into watching Titans, the live action series.
Yeah.
Just because she vowed stuff to us, I'll put Titans on. Then she got really into Titans, and there was this weird bit where I've been the nerd in the family since day one, and then suddenly a character would come on. And I go, "Who's that?" And like everyone else in the family would be like, "Oh right, so that's Deathstroke's daughter." Now the thing about Deathstroke's daughter is and everyone knew more about DC characters from Batman than I did for this weird phase of lockdown that was quite disconcerting. But
that's it. Hand in your nerd card.
Yeah, next season is going to be Ash and
my
Ricky's daughters.
Yeah.
We'll have them all on, but you.
But I just want to do an honourable mention right in this era as well, and played kind of forgotten a bit now, but played a big part in shaping my like sarky 90s sense of humour that everybody has, was The Tick. Has anyone mentioned The Tick yet this season?
No. No, surprisingly not. No.
So again, the more I think about everybody, we've had Watchmen deconstructing superheroes in a very serious way, but The Tick deconstructed the tropes of superheroes in a much more fun way, and that is between the two of them, that is front and center what you see every single superhero thing is now. It's been done to death, but The Tick was right on the forefront of it. Actually links quite well into this minute, because the moon is front and center, strangely without craters in this minute as the Batwing flies in front of it. It's just kind of a grey globe. But there was a boss thing that absolutely blew my mind when I was a kid from The Tick, where one of the baddies was called Chairface. Did anyone remember this? And
I remember he was called Chairface Chippendale. So it ties into Chippendale as well.
Everything's connected.
And he stole a laser because no one respected him enough, so he wanted to carve his name into the moon. And The Tick and is it Arthur had to go and stop him. And they did stop him, but they stopped him halfway through. So the moon said "Chaff" on it. And in every episode afterwards, they wouldn't even make a big thing out of it. But if it showed the moon in the background, the moon would say "Chaff." When I was 11 years old, that was the funniest thing I'd seen.
Yeah.
Is it a false memory that I've got that there was a live action version with Peter Serafinowicz, or is it?
Oh no, that happened. I was very. There's two live action versions. One had Patrick Warburton. That was the early 2000s. I had the guy played Batman. Turned out to play the Mayor of Gotham in the Nolan trilogy. And then there's 2 seasons I think maybe of Peter Serafinowicz.
That was a real thing. That's mental.
Yeah,
it's real. It's underrated.
I'm sure it's the type of thing that I could imagine is just one of the many things that's definitely worth watching. But there are many things.
Yeah, that was an Amazon effort, and it was just one of those ones kept people entertained for a while, and then now we cancelled it. It didn't do. Although you said it's just a weird coincidence as well, though, Ricky, because I bumped into Ash the other day when I was because I pick up my friend Gary's kids, Killian and Dinara, from school, just because they're great kids and I've spent a lot of time with them, and it's just I'll go pick up your kids for you. So just every Thursday I go get them. And on the way back, I'm always talking to Killian about comic book stuff because he's just really into that kind of thing. And one of the big things I was telling him about recently was Chairface Chippendale and The Tick, and trying to explain to him throughout the rest of the show, you see these letters etched on the moon, but it's because this guy who literally had a chair for a head was trying to carve his face in the moon and stuff. And he as a 5-year-old, he was a bit what? It was too stupid for him. He was he watched a lot of stupid stuff, but he's just that sounds a bit and it was great too, because when Quantum Mania came out, I was telling him about MODOK in it, and his review was, that sounds stupid, he looks stupid, that's a stupid idea, I will never watch that film.
Wow.
The rest of the internet was just yep, you're on point, kid. Everybody hated it.
You should upload their reviews to Letterboxd.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's all the notes I got for minute 44. So I'm happy to wrap up when you guys are.
Yep.
And once again, we really thought we were gonna whiz through this, and didn't you have to be done by 10:30, John?
Well, it's not much later, is it? It's only 10 minutes. It's only 10 minutes late. It's all fine. It's good.
Let me tell you another 11-minute parenting anecdote. No.
No, we will head off into the dark, dark night once more. Would you both like to, again, promote anything? Say where people can chat to you online? Or plug something you've liked watching if you haven't got anything. Whatever you want.
This is like when I used to do tours for the kids in the place where I worked, and it's about acting. And I would say, "Oh, has anyone ever acted?" Or and so that the kids who haven't had a chance to do any acting yet didn't feel left out, I'd always say, "Or is there something you'd like to act in, or would you like to get into acting in future?" Or I go, "Does anyone play a musical instrument, or is there a musical instrument you'd like to play?" This is what it's like with me and Ash, because Ash is recording a new album. And I've not got anything at all. So it's like, so would anyone like to plug anything? Ash, you can plug your new album. And Richard, you could tell us what you've been watching on TV.
Yeah, we're trying to include you, you know.
I do feel included. Thank you very much, John. That's very sweet. But no, I think I will let Ash plug the... What else do you have to plug? You've got APAT as well. Have you ever even plugged APAT on this?
No, I don't think I have. That is already out, the new APAT album. It is called We, with one E, not with two E's. And it is on 9x9 Records, same record label that's part of the Pete Bentham new thing.
Yeah, we're label mates.
Yeah.
And our label is now joined with another great label, Society of Losers. They're like they're a joint effort now. It's amazing.
And just like the Double Echo thing you promoted last season, where the album name was a weird fussy symbol, APAT as well. You can't just type in APAT. It's like A _P _A _T T. Is that right?
APATT. We. Very strange album. If you like music, but you're not sure what kind of music you like, you will probably like some of the music that APAT make. There'll be other bits that you really don't like.
You get a sample of everything, don't you?
Yeah, it's kind of if you were to ask what genre it is music. general
not music. That's different.
I've always thought of APAT as being prog rock. Is that acceptable?
In a way, but also if you're a big fan of prog rock, you'd probably find it really annoying.
Yes,
it's like
APAT sounds to people who like prog rock like what prog rock sounds like to the rest of us.
So nobody will like it.
Yeah.
It's like if prog was made by punks. And speak to us on the usual places. Can't be bothered today. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You know where to find us. We're not hard to find. But go to our network, Sleepy Charlie Media, on Patreon for bonus stuff. Yay! Anti-public. Look it up there. Buy things. Give us money. Give me all your money. And we'll see you again for more Minute of the Phantasm and Minute 45.
Next time, the Bat calls a cab. Authorities in an auto gyro aggressively attempt to arrest our Avenger in Lycra armor as the daring do-gooder does some ducking and dodging through some perilous and peculiar parkour. Can our pursued paladin play
You sound like the wheezing gangster trying to catch his breath.
Out of sight? Or can a shoot to kill order spell the end for the homicide suspected Dark Knight? Find out during our next bout of nail-biting nattering, folks. Same Bat Pod, different Bat Minute.
Hey.
Must have up, still fit a bit